I say particularly wonderful to be with you today. I missed Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday because I tested positive for COVID. I am broadcasting from my home as I am in quarantine, not going into the office while testing positive for COVID. My symptoms were at their worst with regard to chills, very feverish. I didn't have a lot of fever at all. I didn't have over 99 at any time, in fact, but a great deal of chills, which was uncomfortable, teeth chattering, etc. Let's see, what else? I can't remember. What else did I have? That was pretty much it. And what is important for me to tell you is that I believe that what I had decided to do over the course of the last year and a half, I believe has been justified. I wanted to achieve natural immunity, which is by far the more robust immunity that one can have against COVID or any virus. As Marty McCary, professor, Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, and the Bloomberg School of Public Health, and the editor-in-chief of MedPage Today, wrote in the Washington Post, "Natural immunity to COVID is powerful. Policymakers seem afraid to say so." More than 15 studies have demonstrated the power of immunity acquired by previously having the virus. A 700,000 person study from Israel 2 weeks ago, this is a few months ago, found that those who had experienced prior infections were 27 times less likely to get a second symptomatic COVID infection than those who were vaccinated. Did you hear that? 700,000 person study in Israel, 27 times less likely than vaccinated people to get reinfected. This affirmed a June Cleveland Clinic study of healthcare workers in which none who had previously tested positive for the coronavirus got reinfected. The study authors concluded that individuals who have had SARS-CoV-2 infection are unlikely to benefit from COVID-19 vaccination. And in May, a Washington University study found that even a mild COVID infection resulted in long-lasting immunity. So I have wanted to have that the entire time. And what I did was I took therapeutics, specifically hydroxychloroquine and zinc and ivermectin. Ivermectin beginning last November and hydroxychloroquine beginning last spring, very shortly after the virus was diagnosed. And I hugged strangers in the thousands, literally in the thousands, while not being inoculated. And it was a gamble based on knowledge, not based on being a gambler. I am not a gambler, and I certainly don't gamble with my health. But I so believe science, and the science of ivermectin, not the lies of the New York Times. The New York Times would wish you dead rather than take ivermectin. And so would the Biden administration, and so would the CDC. They're corrupt beyond words. the number of Americans who are dead because of the opposition to therapeutics is one of the scandals in the history of this country. I think I am a living example of how effective taking these therapeutics is. I am not young. I admit I am healthy otherwise, but I am in the category of people who should be most concerned theoretically, and I am concerned. That's why I've been taking all these therapeutics. I have hugged thousands of strangers, as I noted, at rallies around the country. I have posed for photos with strangers in the thousands at speeches. And finally, I got it from somebody. And that's the story. And I also took the Regeneron, the monoclonal injection, where you're given antibodies from the plasma of a person who has had it. President Trump had it. Biden has made it almost impossible for people to get it because the man is evil. I've never said that of any president. I truly believe that Joe Biden is an evil human being. I think he's corrupt. I think that the entire CDC and FDA is corrupt. I think Fauci is corrupt. And I staked my own health on my understanding of how corrupt they are. But doctors have called this show to call ivermectin a horse dewormer. There's a special place in hell for doctors who have dismissed ivermectin, so I don't really care what they do on my show. I do believe they will answer to a good God, because if anybody should know better, it is doctors. For doctors to believe the New York Times rather than science is a scandal of tremendous proportions. But that's the way the New York Times wants to describe something created for human beings and for which there was a Nobel Prize in medicine given, namely ivermectin. But it doesn't follow CDC protocol. The automaton doctors who exist in this country, who don't know a damn thing about the protocols of therapeutics, and just like a herd follow the CDC and the president and the left. So here I am, and here is what I would say. If you're not prepared to take the protocols and take care of yourself the way my wife and I did, then you are leaving yourself exposed, and then there may be an argument for you to get vaccinated. There's no argument for young people to get vaccinated. None whatsoever. But if you have comorbidities or of a certain age, and you are not prepared to take the therapeutics, you should consider taking the vaccine. That would be my position. It can hurt you. I know people it has hurt. It can also help. It's somewhat of a crapshoot. But I don't want you to take nothing. That is my story at this moment. Talk show host who is not inoculated gets COVID and is fine. And not fine because of luck, but is fine because of therapeutics. 1-8-Prager 776.
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Room 15 Free Studio.
Yeah, well, the right side
Elder Show.
The mayor is backtracking. So it's happening. People have to stand up. These people understand that they have to get reelected. And sometimes we just have to remind them who's in charge. And we, the people, are in charge. That is our system. It is a democratic republic. We all get to participate, but we elect people that we trust. We put them in office, and we trust them to keep us safe. We trust them to abide by the Constitution and to keep us free. And when they do not do that, we have to kick their butts out of office. But the important thing is, as voters, you have to always be mindful of freedom. You have to always be mindful of freedom. Quite frankly, I do believe that it's one of the advantages that I have as a black conservative. You can call me Uncle Tom sellout, whatever. There's no affirmative action plan in heaven. All I have to do is worry about Jesus. I don't have time to worry about you. But I do believe as black conservatives, I compare us to runaway slaves because I often say our thoughts are consumed with freedom. That's what happens oftentimes with black conservatives is we find out and we get this piece of information, we get this piece of history, and we're like, what? The federal government or the Democrat Party did what to enslave us? What did they do? And then you just start looking for that. I also believe it's an advantage that people of faith have, whether you're Christian, whether you're Jewish.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
Secretary Chow, I'm glad you were available today because there are two headlines. One from the Wall Street Journal. Biggest U.S. retailers charter private cargo ships to sail around port delays. Then in the New York Times, it's not sustainable. What America's port crisis looks like up close. There aren't enough workers. There aren't enough ships. You've been the Secretary of Labor and the Secretary of Transportation. What do we do?
It's a very dire situation. You know, when COVID initially hit our shores early in 2020, I was in Secretary of Transportation, and we quickly focused on keeping the transportation supply chains open so that essential medical supplies, groceries, and other essentials were available. And that effort actually required some pretty strong measures. Number one, we decided to ease some restrictions on truckers so that they can keep goods moving. We made sure that the national airspace kept airplanes flying because even though at one point planes were nearly empty of passengers, commercial airliners also routinely transport a lot of goods, especially medical supplies. You know, remember those early days of the initial lockdowns? We had hoarding of toilet paper, sandy wipes, shortage of masks. Stores were putting limits on how much customers can buy of one item. And more than 70% of domestic freight moves via trucks. But today's supply chain problems extend all the way, where worker shortages and COVID lockdowns have slowed the loading of cargo ships from where they started to U.S. ports, where, as you just mentioned, the other day there were over 60 freighters with tens of thousands of storage containers offshore waiting for an opportunity to unload.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, because I have COVID. I feel excellent, and I am living example of the power of therapeutics. I have held the entire time that the use of therapeutics would have saved hundreds of thousands of lives. The American medical establishment is responsible for many dead people. One day the truth will come out. However, it'll take a while because the media lie as a given, and they won't acknowledge that they were part and parcel of the of the denial of Americans of information while joining the hysteria over vaccination or nothing. That has been the policy. That has been the attitude. In Florida, you want monoclonal, the Regeneron. You just go into a place and you get it. Joe Biden has tried to make that as hard as possible so that more people die. One day, people will awaken to the amount of evil we are fighting in this country with regard to the left in every single arena, including medicine. But it's very difficult for people to acknowledge it. It is. I understand that. Well, people like to live in a make-believe land. NBA player says COVID vaccine caused blood clots, but team officials told him to keep quiet. You know how often that happens? NBA player Brandon Goodwin, former point guard with the Atlanta Hawks, pulled out last season because of blood clots he believes were caused by the COVID vaccine. Goodwin said team officials called him when he was in the hospital and told him not to disclose his diagnosis. Goodwin said the symptoms all happened in the span of a month after getting vaccinated. Atlanta Hawks backup guard Brandon Goodwin will miss the NBA playoffs after being diagnosed with a respiratory condition, the Associated Press reported May 18th. While the team described the condition as minor, it will require treatment and keep Goodwin out for the remainder of the season. Nothing else was known about the minor condition until September 29th, when Goodwin disclosed on the video streaming website Twitch that his minor condition was blood clots, which he said developed after he got the vaccine. Goodwin said the symptoms all happened in the span of a month after getting vaccinated. I was fine up till then, up until I took the vaccine, Goodwin said. I was fine. So people trying to tell you it's not the vaccine, how do you know? You don't know. Yes, the vaccine ended my season 1,000%. Goodwin expressed no animosity toward the Hawks, but did express some confusion about how they handled his hospitalization. Nothing against the Hawks, but they called me the next day while I was in the hospital and told me, we're going to tell the press your season's over. Goodwin said the team asked him to keep quiet about his condition, which explains why the public is now only learning that the so-called minor condition was blood clots. They're just like, don't say anything about it. Don't tell anybody. I'm like, bro, Goodwin revealed in the video. Yes, Mike in Glendora, California. Hello.
Good morning, Dennis. I would like to, Colin Powell died today from complications from COVID. What is not known is, and I'm just reading about it on the internet also, 2.5 years ago, he was diagnosed with a terminal cancer called multiple myeloma. This is a cancer that Peter Boyle died from, Geraldine Ferraro, and Tom Brokaw has right now. So, in my humble opinion, he was given a death sentence 2.5 years ago, and they can extend your life, but it's still terminal. He could have died from complications of chicken pox. It's a bone marrow cancer, and I saw this on the Chiron for Maria Bartiromo this morning, or Stuart Varney. It's not being reported at all. But this is the same disease that my wife died from 4 years ago. So I'm very familiar with this. And when I saw that on the TV, I was extremely upset that they weren't making a bigger deal of this. He gave a speech at the Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation 2 years ago in October, talking about how to live with myeloma. But typically you have between 1.5 and 5 years once you're diagnosed with multiple myeloma. My wife lived for 20 years through extensive efforts by Dr. James Berenson. But I think it's appropriate to say.
Well, I'm not quite clear. Why are you telling me this?
Well, because of COVID. You had COVID, and he died, and it's being reported that he died from complications of COVID. And
Right. So you think that's not true? He died of this cancer.
Exactly. Now he had.
It sounds logical to me. If what you're saying is true, and I have no reason to deny it. On the other hand, I don't know anything about it. I only know that Colin Powell died, and they're saying it's COVID. But that's par for the course the entire time. If you have COVID and something else, they attribute your death to COVID to maximize the number of dead, and because honesty is not the policy of medicine at this time. So your point is well taken, indeed, and I'm sorry about your wife, obviously. Fred in Cleveland, Ohio, hello.
Hey, Dennis, I just want to wish you the best with your health.
Thank you.
You quoted an Israeli study. You know, the Israelis presented all their data on Thursday in a public session at the FDA. So the corrupt FDA puts everything on the internet. You can watch it. You can even make comments, which you choose not to do. The Israelis reported out of 4 million booster vaccinations, there were 44 serious adverse events. That's 100,001%. That's safer than aspirin. That's safer than Tylenol. That's safer than peanut butter. Okay? A vaccine that costs $18 a shot has 44 adverse events out of 4 million vaccinations.
Right. So what is it? All right. So what is it that okay, that's right. I hear you.
$20,000 infusion than an $18 shot.
Right. What was it that I reported about Israel? It was not about the safety issue.
No, you misreported a 700,000 patient study that actually.
Well, wait. If I misreported it, then Marty McCary of Stanford or of John Hopkins.
Yes, he did. Yeah, he did.
So
look it up on the internet. It was 191 reinfections, not 700,000 patients. That's what the study was based on.
So
191 reinfections.
Okay, so Marty McCary in the Washington Post made up 700,000 person study from Israel?
No. He didn't make it up, but that wasn't what the statistic that you said was based on. The statistic you quoted was based on 191 patients, not 700,000. The study had 700,000.
Well, that's not what I read to you. We'll be back in a moment.
There's no doubt about it. America is in the middle of a culture war. The battle between left and right is real. One side believes in American greatness. The other wants to tear it down. The Salem Radio Network and the Salem Podcast Network is looking for a few warriors who are already fighting this war. This is your chance to nominate a person worthy of the honor of being